I love to see happy faces in the audience, and it looks like I've got the best. Thank you for being here tonight. So, first thing I want to tell you is tonight's class is really simplistic. So if you guys are thinking, oh my God, am I going to have to take some serious notes? Because I see the note takers already. I'm going to keep it simple but valuable to you so that you can kind of go from step one to step two. So I have to ask, just can you raise your hands if you're already a homeowner? Okay. Can you raise your hand if you have considered doing some real estate investing in the past and have tried and succeeded, or tried and not succeeded, but tried it all? Okay, good. Okay, so I've got a little bit of both. All right. So most people think in terms of real estate investing of properties outside of buying a home, because when they say, hey, I'm going to buy my primary residence, they're not thinking of it as a real estate investment. They're thinking of it simply as a home they're going to live in, right? As opposed to renting a home, say. But really, buying your first home, if that's the only real estate you might end up buying, right, it should be looked at as a real estate investment, which means you look at everything that goes into investing in real estate, which is price, the cost of buying it, you know, the closing cost, the interest rate, the type of financing you're getting, all of that. And also the upkeep, right? When you buy something that maybe, say, a seller doesn't have in the best of condition, you still buy it and maybe it's still financeable, but you might have to change the roof in the next 3 years. Like, for instance, most lenders will lend on a house that has a roof life of 3 years left, right? But if you're buying this house and you're going to live in it, at least from the mortgage company's perspective, of 30 years, you know you're going to have quite an expense in 3 years down the line. So real estate investing includes not only what you're going to buy and what you're going to pay, but also the potential of what repairs and expenses and things that you might have down the line. So just from a personal real estate investor myself, I've been doing real estate for 42 years. My first investment is what got me into real estate. I was 20 years old, and I was in a relationship where we were going to try to find, I lived in the Bay Area, and we were going to try to find a place to live because my housemate had a cat, and we were going to get evicted because the cat wasn't part of the original lease. So all of a sudden we got this notice, we've got to get out, and we couldn't find another rental in San Francisco, of all places. So we went house hunting, and at that time I didn't have much of a job, at least not a well-paying job at 20, and I didn't have too much established credit, a little bit. And I said, okay, now instead of blowing my money on renting, which sometimes is good, okay, so I don't want to say all renting is bad, but I decided, okay, I want to buy a house. So how do I make this work? Well, back then, I'm going to date myself because that was 1980, okay? In the 80s, what was available was the sort of no-income qualifying loans, and I found a property in Oakland, California, which was a bank foreclosure, fixer-upper. I mean, everything that could be wrong was wrong, right? And the bank was willing to finance it, and they didn't care if I had a job, which was great. But all they said is I had to come up with 5% down to cover the down payment and the closing costs. So at that point, I didn't have that either, right? So I reached out to everybody I knew and said, kind of like a GoFundMe nowadays, right? Called my family and said, give me money. I'm buying this house. So I managed to raise it within like 30 days. When I had to close, I had the money, I closed escrow, and I owned my first house. And wow, what an experience over the next 3 years, you know, learning about how to fix stuff up, how to do stuff yourself. And thank God I had actually friends who knew how to do stuff because I was hopeless. I've always been brain over brawn, can't do a darn thing, okay? So they talked about refinishing floors and painting, and I was like, I'm not lifting a finger, I don't know how to do that. So anyway, bottom line is I managed to live in this house for 3 years, fix it up. I bought it for $60,000, sold it for $138,000 3 years later. I mean, more than double my money. Now that, you'd say, is a real estate investment, right? In this day and age, of course, even fixer-uppers in our market here still cost a sizable dollar. But if you could pay $250 and you could do some things and you could fix it up and you could live in it and you can also kind of cover your housing monthly payment and a place to live, and over the course of 3 to 5 years you could sell it for 10% more, 20% more, 50% more like I did. Why not, right? I mean, that's what real estate investing is all about. And as a person who has no experience, right, you can still do that. And the key to that is understanding all the things that get involved in that. So in my profession, of course, as a real estate broker, my objective in working with clients is to try to show them how and what they can buy and where they can make money. But you can use any realtor. You might have a family friend or a loyalty you already have had, and that is perfectly fine. But it's you knowing the information you need to know so that you can be a savvy investor. And so to do that, the things I want you to basically write down, and I made a note only because I wasn't sure I'd remember all the steps to tell you. After 42 years, trust me, I know a lot of stuff, and I remember a lot of stuff, but every now and then I forget something, so I want to make sure that I have all the stuff. So if you'd like to write stuff down, one of the most important things is a personal financial statement. Okay? And a personal financial statement, basically, I'm sure you guys have heard maybe, assets minus liabilities equals net worth. If you haven't heard, assets are everything you have: cash, jewelry, paintings, other investments, I mean bank CDs and all those kinds of things, but also real estate you own, or what other kinds of assets? Oh, cars. You know, the normal things that we have are all assets. And then you add up all those assets, you subtract your liabilities. Liabilities are everything you owe everybody: credit cards, car loans, house loans. You subtract all that, and then that equals net worth. Okay? And net worth, when you're starting out or you don't have real estate, which is a big asset, oftentimes our car loans and maybe other savings that we have minus liabilities might give us a number that we're not quite happy with yet. So don't let that worry you, because the whole idea of building a personal financial statement is building your assets. So, and how do we build assets? Well, we buy real estate for one, right? And that's what I'm talking about, how to find things that are a gem for you to be able to invest in. And cash flow property. So when we buy a house, one of my clients that I was at a class last night where I wasn't teaching, they were teaching, and I was learning, they own a home that has a downstairs basement apartment. So they have a mortgage, they're making their payment, they have their income, they make their payments on their mortgage, and then they have a renter that pays them income, which allows them to pay their mortgage. In their scenario, it's great because the amount of the mortgage is the amount they're getting in rent. So it's great, right? And the reason they've got a mortgage that's low enough where the rent is high enough to pay for it is because they had a good down payment. They had good credit. They got a lower interest rate loan. So that's why all these things are important. When you buy a piece of property, let's say like theirs, which is a house with a unit, or you buy a duplex or a triplex or a quadruplex or any kind of income generating property, there is what they call gross income. And that would be basically everything that is coming in on that building. So if it's a 4-unit building, you've got 4 apartments that are units that are being rented. All the income is called gross income. Okay? Then From that gross income, you take away your liabilities, which typically are what they call operating expenses. So that would be mortgage, property taxes, insurance, let's say the repairs that are necessary to keep the maintenance going on it. Capital expenditures are another one I'm just going to kind of throw in there. Those are things when you own a property and you know that in 10 years you're going to have to replace the roof. In 7 years you're going to have to get a new water heater. Those are the sort of the big expenditures beyond the just monthly maintenance kind of thing, or taxes that you have all the time and insurance that you have all the time. So if we take basically your gross income minus your operating expenses, you have net operating income. Okay, that is how lenders look at a building that you might be qualifying for. For instance, I know I'm going to throw a lot of different stuff out here, but FHA, for instance, does a owner-occupied only loan. But if you buy, say, a duplex or a 4-unit and you're going to live in one unit, you're buying it as an owner-occupant of one unit. The other units actually have income coming in, and you can use that income against qualifying. So sometimes, maybe you don't have the high-powered job that pays you big bucks, but, if you buy a building that you have 3 renters paying money, that's income. So it's a good way to look at investing. So I really like multi-units. We don't have as many multi-units in the Rogue Valley as we should because they're either apartments, which is 5 or more apartments, and that's commercial buildings, and or we have a lot of single families, and we have single families on land, or we have mobiles in parks, and we have mobiles on land. But basically there is a way to find income opportunities. Like the city of Ashland, where I live, they allow a what they call density, and what that means is that you could basically have your home on a piece of land and you can go ahead and get an additional dwelling unit on it. Okay, so they allow for you to have more units which you can build on property here. I mean, there are zoning specifications that the city might require, but there's lots of ways that you can become a savvy investor. And it's just about knowing what are the zoning laws, what does the city have to offer? What does the lenders have to offer as far as first-time home buyer programs? Let's see. First of all, before I tell you more stuff, let me ask you any questions. Do you have any questions? All right, no questions. Wow, you guys are just soaking in all this stuff. I love it. Okay. All right, so then let me ask a more question that you're going to be forced to answer. Mary. She said, no, why me? Okay. What would you like to invest in yourself? I mean, let's say over the next decade, what would you like to see yourself doing in real estate?
Single-family homes, but I'm not against multiplexes.
Okay. All right. So you said single-family homes, as in more than one? Mm-hmm. All right. I like it. Okay. And so one you would live in, and one and several more that you have as rentals? Or what are you thinking?
Right now, my housing structure is secure, but I'm not the owner.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be my plan to move into my first house. I would just buy it for either renting or fixing up and flipping, although I have no idea how to do either.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good. That's why you came tonight, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So both are good thoughts about investing. So if you're not going to buy a house to live in, which is perfectly fine, because if you have a great situation with a renting, for instance, let's say you're either living with family or you have a great opportunity on a rental that's costing you $500 a month. Why would you want to have a bigger house payment, right? So you keep that situation, you take your money, your credit, your income, and you qualify for a rental property, okay? Which is what it sounds like you'd like to do. And if you were to buy a piece of property that you rent out, yes, you could do a single family, right? And you could start out smaller, meaning 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or 2-bedroom, 2-bath, as opposed to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, which normally is more expensive, right? For resale reasons, 3-bedroom, 2-baths have more popularity because families tend to have, you know, larger number of people and they want more space, and 3 bedrooms is 3 or more bedrooms are popular. But in our market here, we also have, you know, retirees, we have students, we have younger families that are used to smaller spaces, and millennials who basically want to keep their expense down or whatever it is. And so you have 2-bedroom, 2-baths that are also very popular. So if I were to recommend your first buy, it might be better to consider a 2-bedroom, 2-bath instead of a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, just because 2-baths are always going to be a little easier on people, right? So, I mean, in other countries, they're lucky if they have a bathroom, they go outside. So, you know, so should you not buy a 2-bedroom, 1-bath? Of course not, you can buy one. But from a real estate resale, 2-bedroom, 2-bath or a 3-bedroom, 2-bath is ideal. So that, if you were to buy, you said you didn't know how to go about if you were to buy a rental. Well, you'd basically first look at the things you need to do to qualify. So income, right? You got a job, and I know you have a good one. Second is good credit. Third is down payment, and then getting pre-approved for a loan. If you guys need lending contacts, of course I have them. In fact, my lender, Julie Stacy at Loan Depot, was supposed to be here, but she had a family emergency, and so she couldn't make it tonight. But you basically start off by getting pre-qualified and have your credit and your income and your down payment and everything related to purchasing a home looked at. Because if a lender looks at it and tells you, and they approve you, they'll tell you what you're approved for, so you know how much to go buy, right? So that's the first part of it. The second part of it, if there's one problem or another, let's say you don't have enough money for the 3.5% plus closing costs that a FHA requires, or let's say you do USDA, which only requires 0 down, but you've got to still have closing costs. Or you do conventional, maybe you need 5 or 10 or 20% down plus closing costs. So obviously, depending on which program is best for you and which down payment is best for you, it helps you to know what you need and you can plan. So you go to the lender first, you get pre-approved, and then from there you start with, okay, I'm approved for $300,000. I needed $10,000 in the bank, which I have. I have the credit score to qualify for the best interest rate available in the market. And now, like a credit line approved, you're ready to go buy, okay? So then we go shopping, basically, for houses, right? So we look at $300,000 houses and we say, oh my goodness, this one is nice, but my God, I'm gonna have to spend $25,000 to upgrade this house just to live in it, you know? So you say, oh, that's not gonna fly. Then you look at another one that's 250, oh, what did I say, 300,000, sorry. 300,000, and it's only a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and it's only 750 square feet, okay? But it's in mint condition. And you say, okay, I'm gonna buy this to rent. If I buy it as is, pay $300, I got a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 750 square feet, I'm gonna rent it for, let's say in Ashland, Rogue Valley still, somewhere around $1,200, maybe $1,500. And will that cover my mortgage payment and my expenses, right? And not maybe cover capital expenditures, which were big ticket items that might come up for the property in the future, right? So it's in good condition, mint condition, you buy it, you say, okay, I can do it with my $10,000. My payment's going to be less than what it is to, or equal to, a renter paying the rent. It's a good investment. Now, ideally, if, let's say you don't have enough money for the 3.5% plus closing costs that a FHA requires, or let's say you do USDA, which only requires 0 down, but you've got to still have closing costs. So if you are going to have a $1,000 mortgage payment and a $1,000 renter paying, would you want it to be just that, or would you want it to be more income and less debt if possible?
More income.
Right, okay. So we call that vacancy factor. What we do is this: we want to have more money because there's typically 25% vacancy factor, which basically means that if a tenant doesn't pay for a month or two, right, we've sort of calculated that in our calculations and have the money set aside to cover that loss, period. Okay. Also, there's changeover too. Like, for instance, let's say you have a 6-month lease or a 1-year lease with this tenant. They move out. Now you got to get a new tenant in. You're going to lose, maybe you'll lose only 3 days, or maybe you'll lose 30 days getting a new tenant in. So that vacancy factor is built in to the transaction for you to know that there's a possibility of time loss and money loss, and we want to include that in our calculations. So getting this vacancy factor built into it is this: if we rented that same $1,000 monthly payment for rent of $1,200, okay, we have positive cash flow. So positive cash flow means we have more money coming in than the money going out. Negative cash flow is when the amount going out, or the amount coming in, is less than the amount going out. So if we have a $1,000 mortgage payment and a renter's paying $800, we're paying $200. We're in the hole, negative cash flow. If, on the other hand, we have a $1,000 payment and a renter's paying $1,200, we have positive cash flow. We have $200 extra a month we can put aside in the bank for this possibility of vacancy factor. And if nothing happens, let's say, you know, in our market, we're really fortunate because renters stay a long time. I know, I rent myself, and I've owned 7 homes in my life. I've owned rental property in my life. At this particular time, I'm renting with a wonderful landlord. And my rental I've been in for 7 years. Now, that landlord is basically having her mortgage paid by me, right, for 7 years now, which means that she owns that property, she's got a mortgage payment. Every time you're making a mortgage payment, it's going down, your principal balance is going down, and you're building equity in that house. So as a landlord, right, which is what you want to be, that's what happens when your renter's making their payments, right? It's lowering your mortgage, you're building equity. So that's just one aspect. So you talked about investing in houses, more than one. There was something else you said, and I've already forgotten, beyond investing in houses.
Well, to be clear, it would be one at a time, certainly to start.
Okay, yes, and one at a time.
If I decided not to rent,
Mm-hmm.
it would be to fix them up and sell them.
That's it. Okay, so, all right. Now you said, well, how do we do that, right? Fix and flip. Okay. You've probably watched those HGTV shows, right, on fix and flip? If you haven't, you should watch them. They're nice. I love them. But anyway, the reality of fix and flip is it takes money, right, to make money. Okay. In this case, basically, when you buy a fixer-upper, you're buying something that is going to take renovation money. Now, there are ways that you can get around it in the sense that there are renovation loans. For instance, Julie can talk to you about a renovation loan. FHA has something called an FHA renovation loan. And what that loan does, basically, is you're able to, say, find a property. So let's take this same property. Now it's $200,000 because it's a fixer-upper. I mean, you got to renovate this thing from the ground up, okay? Ground up renovation could be as little as $50,000, but it could be $100,000, okay, or more. So let's just keeping it simple. Let's say you're buying something for $200,000. You got $100,000 renovation. Now that's $300,000. You can still borrow $300,000 using this FHA renovation loan. Okay. What they do is they basically still approve you based on your income and your credit and your down payment. The difference is they set aside money to be released for these renovation parts. So they do it over what they call 5 draws, basically. First draw is they might do, if it needed a roof, they might do the roof first. If it needed flooring, they might do that. If it needed painting, if it needed new gutters, if it needed new siding, if it needed landscaping, because it was all just a pile of mud in the back, that kind of stuff. So renovation loan you can utilize just like you buy a perfectly beautiful, all in ready to go, or you buy one and you get the loan approved to renovate. But you have to take the time. Normally the renovation time period is about anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And so you could do a fix and flip. The thing about fix and flip is, in that case, using the FHA renovation, it's only for owner occupants, and it isn't for investment. So you would have to buy that home to live in it. You could still get the money to renovate. You could renovate it any way you want. Once you buy it, you renovate it, you own it, the obligation on the loan is that you need to live in it for at least a year. Okay? Once you've lived in it for a year, then you can go ahead and sell it. But from a taxation point, which is a whole nother class that I'll have to do, but from a taxation point, any home that you live in, you need to live in 2 out of 5 years, owner occupied for 2 out of 5 years in order to avoid the gain when you sell it. So if you bought it, you lived in it, you fixed it up, you sold it in 1 year, you're going to pay taxes. If you bought it, you fixed it, you lived in it, you sold it more than 2 years, 2 years and 1 day, then you can go ahead and roll your equity that you gained. Let's say that house was $300,000 with everything done, but you sold it at the high of our market at $500,000. You could roll all that profit into another home and not be taxed. That's great, isn't it? So this owner occupancy as opposed to an investor, there's a difference in the sense of you need to look at real estate like an investor, but ideally, if you get all the bells and whistles of taxation benefits if it's owner occupied and you held it for a certain period of time. So let's say, for instance, you already have your home and you're going to go and buy these homes, and you want to buy, fix and sell, or you want to buy, rent, and hold for a while and then sell when they're profitable, and you're going to pay taxes. How are the other ways that you can deal with that? Well, you can sell them and pay your taxes, typically anywhere from 25 to 30%, depending on where you fall into the tax rates. So on let's say that you made $100,000, and you have to pay $25,000 or $30,000 in taxes to the IRS. Now, legally, you could avoid that tax by doing something called a 1031 exchange. And that's for investors. I know I told you that this was going to be a very basic class, and I'm throwing a whole lot of stuff out at you, but anyway, the idea is just so that you hear the words, and in the future you could say, oh, if I'm going to buy as an investor and I'm not wanting to pay taxes, I might want to do a 1031 exchange. Okay, and what is all that? Basically, 1031 exchange is an IRS ruling called IRC 1031, and that simply says that you can own a piece of property that is a rental property. You can sell it for something similar and buy another one and roll all the profit in. Then you could sell that one, roll all the profit in, and you can keep going. Till one day, maybe when you're 65 or 70 or older and you want to take that income when you don't have any other income and you're in a lower tax base, basically, you can take it then. You can also, I mean, there's a whole lot more here, but you can also, they have self-directed IRAs, which is, you may have heard of an individual retirement account. That's what an IRA is. You can buy real estate in your IRA. And you can buy and sell and roll all those profits into your IRA, and then when you retire, you can take it out. And the key to doing all of that is that you don't pull any of it out. So same thing with the 1031 exchange. When you sell a rental property, you buy another rental property or an investment, you can keep rolling it in, and they use what they call an intermediary exchange agent, kind of like the title companies. There's a special title company that handles the exchange of all the monies that's coming out. So you don't ever really get it into your hands or into your account. It goes when you sell the property. So we've got, let's say we do property A, we sell it, and we go through the intermediary exchange. It closes escrow, you don't see a check. The money sits in this intermediary's account, and then you have 45 days to name some other property you'd like to buy. And you have 6 months to close that transaction. So you pick 1 or 2, 3, you name a bunch of properties that you make offers on because you're not quite sure which one's gonna say yes, right? So you name all those properties, you buy one, you close escrow within 6 months, that intermediary puts the down payment down, you still can get financing, do all of that stuff, and it goes through, you never saw a dollar into your hand. And the IRS is fine with that. They just don't trust you getting the money. The minute it comes into your hands, they say, ha ha, you're gonna pay a tax. So that's the advantage of using a 1031 exchange. But now, good, you're taking really good notes. You're just taking all this in your head, aren't you? I'm watching you, I'm seeing the eyes, just absorbing, focused. Okay, any questions about 1031 exchanges, rental properties?
So many.
Uh-huh, okay, well that's good. So jot down your questions. I mean, basically I realize we have a short time here and my job is to put stuff out there and just make you think about what you'd like to do in real estate. But there's lots and lots of ways to make real estate. I mean, real estate will be one of the biggest investments you make in your life, right? Because it's a high-ticket item. Even if we go to Tennessee, it's 70 or 80,000, right? And unless you're buying a Tesla here, which is 80,000 plus, really the assets in real estate are much better, and they'll last longer, right, than probably a Tesla. So I'd buy some real estate. And most people are fearful of investing in real estate because they're worried about the debt, right? They're worried about, well, do I make enough money? Do I have good enough credit? You know, how will I ever save enough money to do it? Lenders know this, and that's why they've made first-time homebuyer programs, community partnerships where they actually loan you a down payment. And as long as you live in the house and own or occupy it for 5 years, they give you that money. I mean, there's just all kinds of programs out there, and so the key is first to figure out what is it that you want to do. And tonight's idea about investing in real estate is simply really to just tell you that you should buy real estate, not just because I'm such a fun realtor to buy real estate from, but because I really believe in it as a good investment for anyone. And it can be done. I mean, it's mindset, first of all, you know, believing that you can do this. You don't have to be somebody rich with lots of money, and it's only for them to take advantage of these 1031 exchanges or the self-directed IRAs. You know, it's available for everyone. And so, you know, the key is just trying to figure out that you want to do it. That's the first thing. And if after this you want to call and sit down and buy me coffee, I'll buy you coffee. But I'm so easy when it comes to coffee. Anybody offers to buy me coffee, I spill my guts. So anyway, and of course I talk real estate. What can I say? I've been doing it so long and I do it in my sleep. But I love the field. I mean, I fell into it by accidentally buying, fixing, and selling, and didn't think that, you know, was a plan at all. It just happened. But after that, I basically got interested in, oh wow, and I was an engineering student. I was in my third year of electrical engineering, and to my mother's disappointment, I dropped out of engineering school to go into real estate. But now she's very happy that I've made a 40-year career out of it. I didn't let her down after all. But in engineering, one of the things I applied from engineering is you got to do the math as an investor in real estate. And doing the math simply means knowing what you're going to pay for something, what it's going to cost you, what the interest rates are, what the tax advantages are, and how to utilize them. And how to get renters. I mean, some people. I have to tell you this story. Tarek, he's a friend of mine and a long time. I met him in a coffee shop about 20 years ago, and he was an MBA student at that time. And when we met, I was still doing real estate, and so we talked real estate. And he said, I'd like to, when I get out and get a high-paying job, I'd like to go ahead and buy some real estate. So I, back then, advised all my clients to do the right thing, which was to utilize their jobs that they had and build their credit and buy real estate. And they have more money than I do now because they followed my advice. I didn't follow my own advice. I have bought and sold 7 homes. I have bought investment property. I made a lousy landlord because I'm way too nice and way too giving. And when they couldn't pay and didn't pay and went on for a while, and I'm not collecting rent and I'm still paying all the expenses, was not good. Okay, so part of investing in real estate is understanding who you are too, and realizing that if you're going to buy property that you want to have as rentals, it's okay. But if you know that you are a pushover, don't be the manager of that property. Hire somebody and pay them. Normally property managers will charge 10 to 15% of the rent to manage the property, which is to collect, to evict, to deposit the money, pay the expenses, do all of that. It's worth it, especially if you're not really good with letting people, overrun you. And had I known that back then, I probably could have made my rental property better for myself, but I lived, I learned, and realized I need a property manager, So, and now for sure, if I am buying, I need a property manager because I don't have the time. If I don't have the time to service that property, more things can go wrong, right, when you're not there able to see. A renter paying you every month, yeah, you kind of know if the money goes in the bank. But what if things are breaking and they're not just calling you? Maybe it's not flooding the property, but there's deferred maintenance that they're not telling you about. And then all of a sudden one day, a pipe that could have been avoided breaks and causes, major flooding and lots of damage. And hopefully with good insurance, you're going to cover some of that. But some of that's going to fall on you, right? So these are all the kinds of things that you have to worry about if you're going to own investment property. And I don't want to scare you away either, because it can be a headache, right? But the reality is, what isn't a headache in life, right? Yes, you could pretty much become a monk and go and sit under the bow tree, but, and hope that somebody's going to bring you food every day. But reality is we all have things that we have to do. If we want to have investments, it means that we're going to have to do some work and deal with some of the headaches. And we can, with the knowledge, we can avoid that. We can have property managers. Now, there are a lot of wonderful property managers here in this town, because Ashland, for instance, is a town that has a lot of second homes. So a lot of owners that live in the Bay Area, Southern California, or the Midwest, or whatever it is, they own a second home here that they come only for the Shakespeare Festival or the summer. And the rest of the time, it's empty. They don't make it a rental property, which is fine because they can afford it to make their mortgage payment, or maybe they paid cash and they didn't need to make a mortgage payment. They still have to pay for insurance and property taxes and maintenance on that house. But they'll hire a property manager to watch that house, make sure everything is okay, the thefts don't happen. And, you know, if we have a windstorm, that they drive by and take a look, oh my goodness, a tree fell on the house. They have to do something about it, right? So that's what the property managers are supposed to do. And wouldn't you prefer to pay 10 or 20, 10 or 15% of your income on that property to have somebody know 24/7 that they've got that headache taken care of, you know? So it's a good thing for property managers. Yes?
Do you have to be more invested in the property to be able to afford it, that property manager? Because we were talking about the vacancy factor.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. So yes, a property manager and vacancy factor is one of those calculations you put into the operating expenses, right? So you do that first because when you're buying it, that's how you analyze whether, as an investor, whether it's a good investment or not, right? You're going to say, okay, what am I paying in price, right? If I build in, I need to put this much in vacancy factor and this much for property management. These are my expenses. How much rent do I need to cover all those expenses and maybe have a positive, at least a break even or a positive cash flow, right? So if you put the vacancy factor in, even if you come to a break even, you've already built in that vacancy factor. If it never is vacant or nothing ever happens, then you've got that money, right? If you've built in, say, 10 or 15% for a property manager, so that's there. And if you decide you don't need a property manager, fine, you can still build it in, because let's say right now your job is easygoing, you got lots of time, you get off at work at 5 o'clock, and every evening you can drive by your house, and you know, the one that's a rental, you can drive by and check it out, and they've got your phone number. You've got a wonderful renter in Ashland who says, oh, I love you as my landlord, I'm going to stay here, I'll fix this house myself, I'll pay you on time, I've got a great job, they're wonderful with the neighbors love them, everything is perfect, you've got it easy, you're on easy street. Why not have a property manager? Because you've got a tenant who's going to be taking care of things, right? Or they call you, you know, and they say, hey, you know what, this little part underneath my sink fell off. I don't know if it's a big deal, but maybe you want to come check it out. You know, and then you go by and you look at it and you say, oh, okay, it's a washer that goes in the tap thing, and I'll go down to the hardware store and get it and replace it, and everything's great. As opposed to just letting it go, and then all of a sudden the pipe breaks open because that little washer broke off and nobody said anything, right? And now you've got a leak and it's a mess. So the more you can do yourself, you can save money. But at the same time, if there's other things you're doing where your time is valuable, it's better to have a property manager take that burden off of you, right? So it's initially you may be doing more of that. And the more you can learn about real estate, like how to fix stuff, you know, the minor plumbing problems, the minor electrical problems, you know, how to replace a receptacle in front of the two plugs, you know, the little face plate. You just take the screws off and put them back, right? Almost anybody can do that. I don't. I'm hopeless. What can I say? But anyway, a lot of owners like to do little stuff, you know, but they're not going to go and work on their roof, you know. And they might change a gutter or two, or they might clean the gutter out, you know. But it's a matter of you deciding as an investor and an owner of property what amounts of work you're willing to do and what amounts you might need to get somebody else to do. So, but that's why it's important when you're investing up front to know what the things are, what the calculations are, what the numbers are. Right? Real estate is a numbers game. And I think that's why it went so well coming from engineering, right? It's a numbers thing, you know? I'm a numbers girl. And so it's a bottom line thing. It's about figuring out what things make sense for you on the expenses of purchasing a piece of real estate. Now, does that mean that any of us who's even experienced could not make a mistake? I mean, I've still, in years of owning all these homes, I've still made mistakes. And you make mistakes only because even if you follow your checklist and know everything to look for, there are hidden things that you don't know, you know? So, for instance, when you walk through a house, you could walk through and if you feel soft spots or you feel an incline down, that's kind of like foundational issues, okay? Soft spots, normally you'll find them in bathrooms around the toilet because there's water leaks and it makes the, whatever you've got, linoleum or tile underneath that has subfloor, and if there's water damage, that wood gets soft and deteriorates. And so when you press down, you feel, oh, okay? So I have a long list of checklists that I would give you guys for you to look at and go through, ask questions about and all that when you're buying real estate. But still, there are some things you're just not going to be able to see. And, you know, what might be inside walls, you know, things like that. So normally when you buy, say, a 1960s or 1970s house, that house has been around since 1960 or 1970, right? That's a long time. Yes, but sometimes, you know, depending on where and who built it and everything else, that could be more solid than something that was built in 2000s because of the fact that the builders were just trying to build quick houses and they just put them up and, you know, fast and furious. Maybe not as solid as that 1960s home that was built by a builder who took it quite seriously. You know what I mean? So you don't know. All you can do is go through inspections. Whenever a buyer buys, for instance, one of the things as realtors that we recommend that they do is get a third-party inspection. Because number one, we're realtors. Our specialty is negotiations, contracts, disclosures, you know, giving you everything that you should know about. But beyond that, we're not an inspector. I'm not going to crawl in the attic or underneath the house and take a look and tell you, oh, you know, you've got wood rot under there. So I'm going to recommend that you get a third-party inspection. And there are licensed companies here. And those third-party inspectors, they typically are $350 for a general size home up to 2,000 square feet. They will actually crawl on the roof, crawl underneath the house, run all the plumbing, check all the pipes, check the electrical boards to make sure everything is properly up to code, all that kind of stuff. So that's what an inspector does. And that inspection will normally tell you what is the most evident of things that's wrong with the house. However, beyond that, even standard inspections will say, okay, I'm only going to tell you what I can see, but I can't tell you what I don't see, right? So could you still have some property or problems in the future? Yes, you could. But the idea is to minimize it. And if you walk through a house, let's say you're buying, and we do an inspection, and let's say inspection comes back with, oh, this is broken, and that's broken, and this is a problem, and that's a problem. Typically, your response should be, gosh, I might have more work than I anticipated. I need a better price, right? And better price means then you're already buying at a price to offset the fact that you're going to have higher costs to fix it, right? That's all it is. So it's really about knowing your numbers and making the decisions in the beginning. They say you make money in real estate when you buy, not when you sell. And why is it you make money when you buy it? Because that's the time for you to figure out what's this thing really worth. Now, that thing could be worth a $500,000 in the high of the market, and that same home could have been worth half a decade ago, right? But in either time frame, when you buy it, you're looking at, okay, if I'm going to pay, let's say you bought it 10 years ago and you paid $250 and the high of the market was $5, and you didn't have a whole lot of expenses, and you didn't want it anymore to live in or whatever, you decided, okay, let me sell it, right? Because I bought it for $250, I'll sell it for $500. Makes sense. Okay, so let's say you bought it when it was $500,000. Okay, now assuming again, no work, no problems, another decade goes by, but when that decade goes by, we're in a down market, a recession, or depression, which we haven't had in a long time, but a recession, and the property is down, and let's say you paid $500 and it's down to $400,000. Logically, does it make sense for you to sell? Okay, the obvious answer is no, because you paid $5 and you're now going to sell for $4, right? But a $100,000 loss over the 10 years, what have you gained in 10 years? You have gained principal reduction on your mortgage if you had one, right? You've paid down your mortgage, especially if it was a renter paying it, right? You got that mortgage down. So maybe you've made up that $100,000, okay, by the fact that you had a renter, okay? Other thing, taxes. You get to write off property taxes. You get with the IRS against your income. You get to write off interest on your mortgage. So over a decade, you may have paid a whole lot of interest, whole lot of property taxes, which you've taken to reduce your tax burden on your income. You have to calculate what that meant for you. See? So yes, the obvious is buy low, sell high, right? And you make money. But even if you buy high and sell lower, you can still make money because you've had all these other things with owning real estate, the advantages of owning real estate, which is the tax write-offs, the benefits of even, say, buying in an IRA and having that money tax deferred. So sometimes less price is okay. Yeah, it would be great if every time we bought real estate, we sold it for double. But it doesn't always happen that way. And sometimes, let's say you're married, you bought it when it was $500, you're getting a divorce and you're now forced to sell it at $400. Okay? It could have still been okay because of all these other things I told you that were advantageous for you in real estate. But you're in a position where you're forced to sell because you're getting a divorce and you guys have to split up and you have to split the money and you got to sell, and that's that, right? But if it is indeed losses, you can also write off losses with the IRS and carry them over on your tax returns. So there's the benefit. I mean, bottom line is all of us, I mean, people don't like to pay taxes, right? And of course, the rich definitely don't like to pay taxes because they earn more money, right? And they don't want to pay taxes. And the poor, unfortunately, are stuck earning, paying taxes, not being able to afford all these write-offs and advantages. So the idea here is we need to get from being poor to somewhere in between. We don't have to be rich and take all the advantages, but we could learn what those advantages are and apply them in the middle and make our lives better. So anyway, did I talk enough about real estate or give you at least some ideas? How am I doing on time?
You're good. We just need to be out of here by 9. So
Okay. Okay. All right. So any questions? No questions? You guys kill me. Okay. Well, you know what's going to happen, right? I know you have my number, so you'll call me over the next couple of days, and you'll be thinking, hey, you mentioned this, and what does that mean, really? Okay, so the questions will come after the fact. And I understand they're not right here. And you pretty much understood the generalities I was making about real estate. You know, it's a good investment. You can buy. You want to build a portfolio. Ideally, if you really want to increase your net worth, you want to maybe set a goal on like one property per year for the next 5 years, and quit there if you want. Or you can make more, for longer, for the next decade, depending on your age and where you plan to retire and where you want to have an investment not kind of set aside. It's a matter of deciding whether you want a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan.
But wouldn't the 5-year, like say you bought one a year,
Every year.
every year, wouldn't that mess with your game because you would have to be owner occupied?
Ah, see, now very good. But here's the thing. Yes, okay, good, okay. So if you wanted to be able to still own one property per year, it doesn't mean that even though the best way is to owner occupy a house, live in it, fix it, increase value, sell it in 2 years, maybe your plan isn't to buy, fix, and flip. If you're going to do that, yes, that taxable time frame and owner occupancy is going to make a difference. But let's say your plan is that you want to buy properties that become what they call buy and hold. You want to buy them, hold them, keep them in your portfolio, let them grow in income, let them reduce in their debt over time by renters paying for them, then you can buy one property per year or 2 properties per year, whatever you want to do. And a fix and flip doesn't have anything to do with it. It could just be a buy and hold. Now, if you were to have that strategy, for instance, maybe you could buy your first one, which is your primary residence, right? You buy and hold that because you're going to live in it. And you buy another property, and you buy it as a rental investment property. You put a renter in it, and you stay in your house for a few years. And then you decide, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and sell my primary home, take all my income, or take the equity out of it, right? And take that money, and I'm going to go occupy one of my rentals and live in that for 2 years. I mean, there's lots of different ways that this can be done, and I have all kinds of ideas for you. So it's just a matter of first of all, you just kind of getting an idea, what do you want to do, and do you want to replace your earnings by owning real estate and the income that comes from real estate? That's one thing. I mean, some people look at it like, okay, I'm going to work for the next 10 years. And in these next 10 years, I would like to be a passive investor in real estate, which basically means you're not actively doing all the work. You have a property manager, you have somebody running it, you have everything. All you're doing is just owning it in your name, okay? You want to be a passive investor where you buy a house every year for the next 10 years, let's say, while you're working, okay? And you own your own home. And at the end of 10 years, you now retire. You still have your own home. You've stopped your job. And now you've replaced your income from your job. Let's say it's $50,000 a year. We'll just use a number. $50,000 a year of income. You've replaced that $50,000 by the rental income of those 10 properties you bought over the decade. So when you retire, you still get your Social Security and all those things that you would normally get when you retire, but you've now still replaced your job income and not have to work, right? In 10 years, you still have $50,000 of income coming in on properties, rental properties.
You still have to work because you have to deal with tenants.
Yeah, you still have to deal with tenants, yes.
Does that happen?
Yes. Yeah, there.
Such a minimal income, a property a year?
A property, yeah, because the idea is it's about when do you make money in real estate? When you buy. So it's about buying it at the right price, buying it with the right expenses, the right interest rate, the right costs, keeping your costs down, and generating a higher income, right? Making it buying a piece of property that's going to give you the most rent, right? Somebody.
The biggest variable, the renters?
The biggest variable is, it could be the renters, but I mean, in real estate there are a lot of variables, right? Because what you pay at what time of the market, right? What price you pay, interest rates, right? Those are variable because they go up and down. Costs, because for instance, once we've gone through this pandemic, everything has doubled in expenses, right? Our food costs are up, our gas costs are up, our utilities are up. So if you were to buy a piece of property now as opposed to 3 years ago, right, utilities have gone up, right? So all of a sudden, those expenses are higher. But what else went up? Rent went up, right? Crazily, rent went up. And part of the reason landlords were able to get higher rent is because there was also an influx of people coming from other places moving here. So, so those are all variables. So when you buy real estate, you take all of those into consideration where you are. If you called me and said, hey, I'm a California realtor as well. If you called me and said, I want to buy a property in San Francisco, right? So first thing I'm going to do is say, okay, are you qualified? Because the price of something in the Bay Area is going to be $750,000 or $1 million. That same house could be $350 to $600 here, right? So the question is, if you really want to buy in San Francisco because it has high demand, high income earners, high rentals, and also property values have increased realistically, probably more than double over this last decade, right? So, yeah, tripled, yes, exactly. So if you said to me you want to buy something in the Bay Area, the variables for the Bay Area are going to be different, right? What is the rent there? What do people pay for rent? What is the cost of buying that house? What is the cost of utilities there as opposed to here? Maybe here we're more inclined to have properties with solar and therefore it's less expensive. There you're going to pay high electricity bills. Here we pay them too, but still. So when you say what are the variables are where you want to buy and what your strategy is. So if you told me you wanted to buy a $750,000 house in San Francisco Bay Area every year, I'm going to tell you, you probably need to go get a second job, right? Because you're going to need more money, realistically, right?
Do lenders ever lend on the fact that you're not living there and you're going to rent it out?
Yes.
Like whether or not you can afford it?
Yes.
I've heard of people doing that in the larger cities.
Yes, yes. So that's how people made money in the Airbnb business, because they bought a property that they knew they could make Airbnb, didn't have to do it like the way of owning a hotel or a bed and breakfast, right? But you did an Airbnb where you had a certain amount of rentals guaranteed because you were in a high traffic area like San Francisco where people travel to. And you could get that rent continuously and make so much more in income. But you had to buy something that was more pricey and make it, you might even have to get a property manager, right? Because you're here and they're there, right? So to do that, yes. So yeah, absolutely.
Do you have to have an established portfolio to do something like that?
No. The first time around now, if you're doing, there are lenders that lend based on whether you have experience, okay? So your first one.
So it does help.
Yes, it does help. Yes,
experience.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Because what happens when you have experience and you go back to certain lenders that are going to loan based on real estate experience is they will give you more money with maybe more or less constraints, right? So that's where the experience comes in. But if you're a real estate investor and you're buying, say, properties all over the country to do Airbnb, your first one might be hard, right? But after you get one or two under your belt, then you convince the lender, hey, give me money. Look, I've done this successfully once, twice, and then you keep going, right? So somebody who's done their 10th deal might find it much easier to get funding. On the other hand, if you own a bunch of them, there are mortgage loans and lenders that will not give you loans if you've got 5 or more loans out there. because they're also worried you might take on more than you can chew and screw them all. You know, so there is a balance between everything that we do in life, right? And but there is almost anything available for real estate, more so than anything else in terms of assets, because it is a fixed asset that's not mobile. You know, they don't have to chase you to go look for their asset, right? You could take off with an RV, you could take off with your car or your motorcycle, right? But you're not going to take off with the house. It's going to be there, right? So that's why real estate lenders land, and real estate is defined by property, basically, land, right? That's what makes it real estate. So if it's a house on land or a mobile home attached to land, or it's units on land, it's the land that makes it real property. Personal property is things that are not attached to the land, like mobile homes in a park. They're personal property, and another word for that is chattel. And basically, if you were going to go, I can't remember the name of the park here, if you wanted to go get a loan for your mobile home that you're going to purchase, maybe the mobile home still costs $100,000, right? But it's in a park, so a mobile home lender would loan on that, not a real estate lender. And now, mobile home lenders have pretty much gone away. They want to only loan on mobile homes on land, or real property, which is just a house on land. And mobile home lenders have gone away, so nowadays, you know, or there's less of them. It's a little harder for people to get financing on them. And they're at higher interest rates than a typical mortgage. So if the mortgage rates are 6, a mobile home lender might be at 9. So that's, yeah, there's just a whole array of stuff for an investor. And most people, when they're thinking about buying a house, they're just thinking, okay, I want to buy a house to live in, and can I qualify for the mortgage, and how much is my payment going to be, and you know, can I put food on the table after I make the mortgage payment? And that's all they're thinking. And they're not thinking of it from an investment standpoint. And the purpose of this class tonight was for you to look at it from an investment standpoint. Anything you buy, even your own home, or a rental, or whether you want to be a passive investor, or whether you want to build retirement income through a self-directed IRA, and you want to buy real estate into your IRA, or you want to form an LLC, limited liability company, and buy real estate. You can do that. You can buy it in your individual name. You could do it as partners. The 3 of us can partner together and buy a house. Each of us puts up our portion of down payment and our credit for qualifying and a mortgage. That would mean we're all liable together for that mortgage, right? We're all on ownership of the title, with all 3 of our names on title. And basically, that's a partnership. So you could form the partnership, you know? We can call it the Fun Girls. Anyway, but bottom line is, yes?
Quick question, you said there's, even though they've gone away, the mobile home, there's lenders for mobile homes. Is there different lenders for commercial? And the other part of the question is, what about just land with no building on it? We just want to buy the land.
Okay, good question. All of those are good questions. Yes, so there is a difference between residential and commercial. And what makes commercial commercial is 5+ units, okay, or the zoning of something, okay? So if it's an office building or a warehouse, that's commercial. If it's 5 units or more apartment buildings, those are commercial. So the types of financing for commercial are different than residential lenders. And in fact, residential lenders will give you more leverage, meaning you can put the least amount of down, like the USDA with 0 down, or FHA with 3.5% down, or if you're a vet, VA with 0 down. You can't do those for commercial. Commercial, typically across the board, they're 25% minimum down payment. So the other question was, can you buy land by itself, and is that a different lender altogether? Yes. So the lenders that make loans on land, it's either a lot loan, where you're buying, say, 100 by, well, let's say a 3,000 square foot lot, which you're going to buy and you're going to build a home, like say even the small builders who buy a lot, build a home. They call it building a speculation, on speculation, a spec home. They build it, they sell it to an end buyer, right? They needed to get a loan for the purchase of the land, and they are the builder construction. They still needed money to construct the home, and then they sell it to an end user who's a buyer who's going to go out and get a VA loan, FHA loan, USDA loan, or conventional loan on that house and land. If you as an individual wants to buy land, like a lot, you get a lot loan to build on, or you can get a land loan, which is just to purchase the land itself, and then you get a construction loan to build the house. Okay? So, yeah, more stuff. Mary says, oh my God, I thought this was just the basics. And this is nothing, there's more. Okay? So as you step from here to here, there's going to be even more stuff to learn. But the idea is that there's a full array of products and things that go with real estate, from residential to commercial, to the types of financing, to your financial statement and your credit and money and all the things you have to do it. And renters, how when you buy a house and you make it a rental, and what is the rental process now? Property managers will manage the property. They also will offer you services to pre-qualify the tenant, run their credit, verify their income, do a background check for criminal background, and then put that renter in there for you, do the lease for you, and do all of that. That is all a part of a property management company's duties, right? But if you didn't do all of that and you wanted to do it yourself, you could. Zillow, for instance, now offers these little services for owners where you can actually get a background check done on a tenant and do an application online and do all this stuff. You know, do at least, yeah, so it's kind of fun. But bottom line is, you can do all of that stuff yourself. You may not want to, and maybe you might do it for the first 1 or 2 for the experience, and then after that you said, hey, let me automate this, let somebody else do it. Even though it's going to cost me a little bit more and my bottom line might be less, in the long run, I have no headaches, right?
How did the pandemic reflect on the landlords? Like all those people not paying rent first?
Oh, a lot of landlords were in big trouble during this pandemic. Because what also happened during the pandemic is the government put moratoriums on foreclosures and things. So people who weren't paying their mortgage payments weren't getting foreclosed on. But the lenders basically weren't getting their money, right? So they got the short end of the stick and they had to wait. Now that, and I predicted like, yeah, I could see, but I knew what was coming down the pike, right? Because I've been through this before, just from 42 years of being in real estate. I predicted that what was going to happen is after all those moratoriums were lifted, we were going to have more foreclosures. Why? Because all those people that didn't have or were not forced to be foreclosed on, it was going to come, right? Because they still, yeah, 2 years, 3 years, maybe they didn't pay their mortgages, right? Eventually, they're going to lose their house, right? I mean, that mortgage lender isn't going to say, oh, no problem, we're not going to worry about it. Just start paying your mortgage and everything will be fine. No, you owe me 3 years back rent, you know, or back mortgage. So.
Yeah, but that would all fall on the owner since they were renting it, right?
Right.
Unless they agreed to like accept only 75% or something.
Right.
And they had to forgive the rest. Like,
Yeah.
that's all on the owner.
Yes, exactly. So if you were a landlord and you owned a rental property,
And the person stopped paying.
and the person stopped paying the rent,
There was
and
nothing you could
Right, because you had the mortgage in your name, your credit is at risk, right? And you're the one obligated to the lender, right? And you stop paying, yeah, you bet.
Because you're not receiving the rent. you
Right.
can't.
Yep,
But they also couldn't foreclose on you.
right. But still, it screwed up
But
your
it
credit, right?
Still messed you up.
Right, exactly. So yes, the pandemic hasn't been very nice to landlords.
And that moratorium did end.
It
this
did
past
end.
Summer.
Yes. Yep.
And there's just been a flurry of foreclosures.
Yep, they're all coming slowly because, you know, the lenders, one of the things also the lenders try to do is they don't try to flood the market with a whole bunch of foreclosures, because what happens? It reduces prices, right? And then all of a sudden we have a crash in real estate. So to avoid that, they put it out in a certain amount of numbers.
Yeah, they
You
don't
know.
want too many houses on their back sheet.
Right, exactly.
Because they have to explain to everybody.
Yes, you got it. So yes, so if you guys want a list of foreclosures, for instance, I'd be happy to give it to you. I have access to those. And basically what the foreclosure list will show you is property address, how much is owed, when the foreclosure date is at the sheriff's sale or the trustee sale.
Have you ever bought a foreclosure?
I have. And it was an experience, let me tell you. Okay, so when you buy a foreclosure, number one, it used to be, now they've offered, some of the lenders have offered some opportunities to get financing on them, but before it was all cash or nothing. So, I mean, if I was gonna buy something $200,000-300,000, I'm not sitting on that much cash, right? So I have to go get somebody who's gonna fund that deal. So I partner with an investor who's gonna fund the deal. My proposal is we buy this property in foreclosure, we get it for a sweet deal for $200,000. Yes, we have $50,000 of fix up, but the house is worth $350,000. Let's buy it, you fund the cash, we'll split the profit, I'll do all the work, and we'll get it to,
Someone with lots of money.
right, exactly, yes. And that also,
There are plenty of those out there.
yes, and that also is one of the things that I supply for you, is access to those investors. And basically those investors look to me to not just find a deal, but find the people that, you know, they're going to lend to or partner with. You've got to be a good risk for them, right? Preferably with some experience doing it. If not experience doing it, at least a great job and good credit and good history. Right? Yeah, no background check that, you know, says you were a felon and, you know, all these things, because that, huh? Bankruptcies, yes, all those things, yes. Yeah, and not that we're trying to say that we should be biased because you had a bankruptcy or that you're a felon, but bottom line is, yeah, you're a higher risk any way you look at it. And for people who are putting up money, of course, a higher risk means they worry. So that's doable as well. So I see you thinking. That's a good sign. I love when people are thinking, oh, okay, I could start doing this, I could start doing that. But yes, so we have access to foreclosures, we have access to investors, we have access to buying at the right price and selling at the right price. If you're going to fix a property and you don't have any experience, you want to hire handymen or contractors. Of course, you know, we want licensed contractors where possible, but there'll be some times when it's a small job that you can get a qualified handyman to do the job, you know, for less money. So you learn what all those are, and you pay to have those things done on your fix-up. And that's just going to be experience. I mean, if you just want to read and learn, and then, besides coming to my classes, because my next class is productivity. I know it's not the same thing, but it's about how to make, what is it, 12-week year. My next class, by the way, starts on the 18th. So how to make as much done in a year in 12 weeks. Huh? That's a challenge. It's a challenge. And I'm waiting to start my 12-week year with my classmates so that we can all be accountable for each other.
Where is that?
Right here with yours truly. So anyway, with real estate, bottom line is there's lots of ways that you can strategize on what's best for you, but start small, but start, you know, because it's a good thing to have an asset that's worth something, and real estate will always be worth something, you know. I mean, they're not making any more land. You heard that, right? Yeah, and you know, I'm from Sri Lanka, where it's a small island, and it's amazing how costly real estate is there, right? And there's, I don't know what the ratio is of population is to the poor to the rich, but let me tell you, there's a lot of poor people there, and land is ridiculously expensive, you know, and it's the rich that control the land in countries like that, because nobody else could afford it. You know, I mean, they're really, really poor, right? I mean, here the poor are fairly well off. They're still driving a nice car, you know, in comparison to the ones in Sri Lanka. But anyway, bottom line is invest. And if you can't afford to invest here, one of the things I've done is I've set up contacts all over the country to do relocation. You can buy an investment somewhere else in the country. I mean, Tennessee, Omaha, Kansas. I know you're like, Kansas, really? Okay, well, so the reason for maybe buying in some of those less expensive places is that you can still get a real estate loan. You can still own a piece of dirt, right, with a house on it, and renters cover the cost of the mortgage there. You know what I mean? You could have positive cash flow. You may be able to buy something for $100,000, have a $1,000 renter, have positive cash flow of a couple of $100, as opposed to buying in the Bay Area for $750,000 and have maybe a $5,000 renter, but your mortgage is $5,000 also. You know what I mean? So
And property tax is higher because of the purchase price.
correct. Yeah, property taxes are higher, and insurance is higher because it's a bigger liability, right? So you can invest anywhere in the country. As a U.S. citizen or a U.S. Earner, you can basically buy anywhere in the country, or even in the world. If you decide you want to buy internationally in Mexico or Italy, buy one of those old homes under the Tuscan sun, right? Go and go.
Properties going for opinions.
Yeah. Those are serious fixers. and those houses are like year 1000, you know, long time ago. No proper heat. But anyway, the bottom line is I believe, and that's of course the reason why I went into real estate and love real estate and will do it till I die, is that owning property is the way to go. So I can only tell you from experience and from my own love of, and passion for it, that you should buy some real estate somewhere along the line when you're ready. So I see another question.
It's kind of a silly one.
Okay, there are no silly questions.
You're a very well-connected realtor. You're licensed.
Yes?
Is there any sort of contractual agreement we would engage in if we were doing multiple properties?
No.
Is it like a lawyer, like you put down money and I retain you as a realtor?
Hey, I'm not against it, but no, it's not required. So in real estate, you can have what's called a buyer's agent, and buyer agency, where you actually enter into an agreement with me that I'm going to go look for you and find a piece of property, and when you buy, I get paid. Whether the seller offers a commission or you're going to pay me, we're in a contract where I'm going to make money if you buy a piece of property, okay? I personally don't do those, okay? Not because I don't want to, but I don't need to, because I can still represent you as a buyer. I can still go find you a piece of property, and I would find you a piece of property that, let's say, is on the market for sale, where our seller is paying our compensation, so I get paid, right, by the seller. Now, if let's say we found a home that's for sale by owner, I would have to ask that owner, would you pay me a certain commission to bring this buyer? And they might say no. And being that I'm a good realtor and you want that property, I would still make that happen for you without getting paid. That's where having a buyer's, well, it can make sense. I know it doesn't seem that way. That's how I've stayed in business for 42 years, is because it can make sense. Because if you do the right thing and you do help people, what goes around comes around, right? So if I help you do a transaction where I didn't get paid for whatever reason, yes, well, just send me a check then. No worries. If you're feeling guilty, just send me money. But anyway, the bottom line is, if that were to happen, right, what would happen is in life, normally good things come out of that. You know, you would refer to other people that might go and use my services to buy a house that a seller's paying me a commission and I'm making money. I might end up making 3, 4, 5 more sales because I helped you. Now, is my objective to keep working pro bono, as they say in the attorney world, right? For free? No, of course not. I'm in business to make money. I get that.
Does that happen a lot, where you would approach the seller for the fee?
No, it's standard that sellers pay the commissions. Yes. So if you were to get onto Zillow and search for property, all those properties on the market for sale, the seller, yeah, that's how it is. So if you had a home, right, that you owned and you wanted me to list it for sale, you'd pay a commission for selling that house. Okay? Okay, as a seller. As a buyer, you don't pay the commission because you're going to go buy a house from one of those sellers who've listed their house for sale. Okay? So 99% of the time, you're going to find a house that's been listed for sale, and that seller's going to pay my commission, and
Because they're about to sell their house.
Right, exactly. So by bringing you as the buyer to that seller, they pay me, it's a win-win for all of us. But every now and then, there's that deal where we find something that is perfect for you, right, and for you to buy because it fits all the numbers, and that seller's not going to pay me, and you're not going to pay me. Why the heck would I want to do it? Because I want to help you. All right, and hopefully that goodwill will turn into lots more deals. That's the way the world works, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, right? We help each other?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were, and what she's saying there is if you're going to buy, fix, and flip, right? When you buy it, you're not going to pay a commission. When you're fixing it, you're spending the money to renovate the property. When you go to sell, you're going to pay a commission for the sale of the property.
And when I sold it, I would go through you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That would be the loyalty I'd hope for. But you wouldn't have to, because I'm not a person that makes you sign a deal that says, hey, you've got to use me. Okay?
Do other realtors expect?
Some do, some don't. Some get contracts signed and some don't. It's all a matter of how you do business and your style of doing business or strategy of doing business. You know? So it's always worked for me because most of the people, I mean, I could only say in my career of real estate, I've only had 1 or 2 people that I've done business with that I haven't liked. Okay, so yeah, 99%. Yeah, 99% of the people. So that's how things work. If you like the people you work with, you're going to be good for them. You're going to help them. They're going to be good for you, and they're going to help you. And if they're going to sell their house, they're going to call you, right? That's the win-win. If on the other hand, you've got, you know, nasty people or horrible people, you want to stay away from them because they'll probably stab you in the back, right? And so, and like I said, I've only met 1 or 2 people, and I've tried to pretty much just stay away from those people because their negativity and all of that is not it's not good to be around. Exactly. So I try to be around good people, positive people, people who want to do the right thing and support each other in the group and the community and help one another and have it be basically a win-win. So with a...
find that's the general, sorry to
Oh, no, no.
but do you find that's your general response with people working in real estate?
The general response with the buyers, you mean, that I interact with, or you mean like other realtors, or?
Investors, realtors, like,
I
are there just as many shady people as there are unshady?
Yes, well, you know, I'll tell you, there's always going to be good and bad. So there are people that are shady. There are people that really don't care. They're just looking for the next deal, right? But a good realtor is someone who wants to, yeah, who cares, who wants to do business the right way and have a lasting effect. And, you know, I mean, real estate doesn't sell every day, right? If you buy a piece of real estate, more than likely you're not going to buy from me or maybe sell that home for at least 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, right? So, yeah, so you're not like a turnover every day, right? Like maybe, I don't know, small, like if you're selling cookies, it's going to sell every day, you know, right? But real estate sells over a longer period of time. So the idea is that you want to have good relationships, right? Because you, I want you to call me in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, right? And hopefully I'm not dead. Just kidding. I don't plan to be. I plan to be working till I die, and that's going to be a long time. So, yeah, there you go. So really the bottom line is you want to have relationship. This is a relationship business, and it's one where we all become friends, you know, because we're doing business. And sometimes I have my clients in the transaction, which is, say, typically a 30-day, 45-day transaction from start to finish. We're involved almost every other day, right? Because right, talking about, okay, hey, did you do this? Did we get the appraisal done? Did we get your loan approval? Did we get the inspection done? Oh, I have to meet you next week to do the inspection. So we're really quite involved in that period of time, right? At the end of that time, when your house closes, right, I get to say, hey, congratulations, call me when you're having your housewarming party. And some people have it a month, 2 out, and some people never have it, and I never get a call, right? So what happens normally is you'll go through a withdrawal period because you won't hear from me anymore. And you'll say, Sonali doesn't call me anymore because I was calling you every other day, you know. But yes, at the end of that period, I move on to the next transaction, but you are still there for me, and I know I'm there for you. You can always pick up the phone and call me.
Pretty busy, like all the time?
All the time, yes. But that's good, because that's why I love my work, and business is good, and it'll always be good because there's always the next deal to do. Yeah, so I would love it, though, if you become an investor, right, and you buy 10 properties from me instead of just the one house that you buy and not call me for 10 years. But statistically, it's about 3 to 5 years. So, in fact, the houses I sold prior to the pandemic, all of those people are calling me now. Yeah, so. Yeah, it's interesting. So anyway, further information is available. I'll be doing hopefully more classes, but this was just to give you an idea that you should look at real estate from an investor perspective other than just a home buyer.